Thank you so much. Always so wonderful to start the day with the live music. Really appreciate it. So welcome everyone. I'm Lisa Marcus, and we're very happy to see you here today. Aviv, thank you so much for inviting me to join you and the rest of the team. As I had mentioned earlier, this work into the soul, and although it's just beginning, it feels so important. And I have really found that I'm connecting to my soul in a much deeper way. So thank you for this. We have a great day ahead, 2.5 hours. So there's a lot more to get to. Just one thing before I bring Aviv in. We would ask if you could please keep your camera on if possible. I think there was one friend that couldn't be on camera, but if you can, we love to see you as you love to see us. And if there will be time for conversation and people to have input, and we will do breakout rooms. So there's a lot planned for today. So welcome everyone, and great to see faces from around the world. Wonderful. And hello, Aviv. Welcome to the day.
Thank you very much, Lisa, and thank you all for coming. Let's actually have with us here in the spotlighted area Peter and Kyriaki and Patrick. So the team is here with us, and as you join us, let me describe how today is going to play out. And my audio is still coming through clear?
Excellent.
So we will start with a practice, an ecology setting practice. Why we will begin with an ecology setting practice such that we are more ready to sense and to feel our way into this work and into this journey into the soul. Because what today is about, more than imparting knowledge, it is about inviting us to sense, to feel, and to experience some new pathways, some new portals into the soul. So we'll begin with that, and after that, I will offer a brief framing, opening, about what this inquiry odyssey into the soul is and what it is not, and also why engage with a journey of inquiry into the soul, and why specifically now. And then we will lead from that to describe a foundational polarity that we will be invited to practice integrating and transcending. That's going to be relevant for today and for the entire journey ahead of us into the soul, and if you like, something to embrace for the rest of your soul journey in this tour of duty. And from that, we will go into rooms for about 18 minutes in groups of 4 to create an opportunity for us to hear each other, sensing, intuiting, what is this journey inviting us into? A way to share intuitions, feelings, potentially inquiries. And then when we come back from the rooms, we'll do a brief harvesting of intelligence from the rooms, not a report out, but just to distill some of the essence of what emerged in the rooms. And then we will take a brief bio break, and then we will flow with the help of the IHOW crew with us here, Eleni and Beth and Rita, to discover some starter practices to sense into the 3 jobs of the soul. Job 1, the guardian of life. Job 2, the steward of learning. And job 3, the champion of higher purpose. And we will offer starter practices to sense into those dimensions. Again, we each have a soul, and so we are not, this is not so much imparting knowledge as much as it is a way to relax and get naturalized into latent intuition and knowing that mostly in modern life we are distanced from. So that's the flow of the day. We will end with a bit of an open forum to hear some intuitions, senses, and perhaps to offer some sense of what's ahead for us on the journey. And the one other thing I will offer just before we transition to the ecology cultivation, ecology setting practice, is one of the things the soul loves to do. The soul loves to integrate all the many parts into a unified, larger picture. The soul forever tries to connect the fragments into a greater whole. And one way I have experienced it this last week was we had our grandchildren here with us in our Florida home, and they flew, which is, if you hear a bit of my voice still coming back, a little deep baritone, it's because the practice when they were here was 100 kisses a day with my 1-year young grandson. And so he transferred to me what they more or less have all the time, that my immune system is not altogether processing every day. So I'm still coming through this. But the day they flew back to their home in Seattle, the following morning, our 4-year young granddaughter, she called and she asked, where are we and what are we doing? Why was she asking, where are we and what are we doing? Because she was here with us for 7 days and she was part of the integrated, unified experience of the everything that was going on. And all of a sudden, with the gift of the miracles of modern technology, she took off on a plane to the other side of the country, to Seattle. And the soul, still adapting to modern life, because the soul continues to adapt, which is something I'm discussing in chapter 3. I think it's chapter 3. And but what did she ask? She said, where have you been and what are you doing? She endeavored, the soul wanted to integrate the parts. Because yesterday, the day before, she was here, now she was in a different home, in a different actuality, and a part of her, her soul, was seeking to create an integrated weave of the different parts. I've observed that nature, that impulse, earlier on, she would even be dropped with us for the weekend when we are on the other side of the country. And in the morning, she would call on FaceTime to her mom, and she would go through all the rooms in the house because she lives with her mom every day. That's part of her integrated reality. Now she was in a different ecology. For her soul to weave an integrated picture, she wanted her mom to connect with all the different parts of the house she was in now. So many of you perhaps had a chance to observe this kind of an impulse in the soul. Sometimes somebody will say it's the brain. Right, the brain does that in service of the soul, because the soul is forever seeking to bring the fragments into a greater whole. So that's why I felt it was important to describe the different parts, the different fragments of the day, so you can, in the beginning of the day, have a brief for your soul about the unfolding of the journey today. Let me make a pause here and see if Peter Kyriaki. Patrick, is there anything in you to say at this point before I transition to offer an ecology setting practice?
Yes, I would like to put an emphasis in what you said, Aviv, about this weaving function of the soul. That also it softens the contradictions and it includes. So we so rarely speak about the soul, and it's a very sensitive and very powerful organ or functionary. So I welcome everyone here in this space to really relax and be as open as possible to allow the soul to breathe, to allow the soul to appear, and not to be pushed down somewhere. Yeah, just to say the value about what you just said and about the fact of us being here and giving some hours to speak and to research in an open way, in a fresh way, about why we have a soul. So, thank you.
Thank you, Kyriaki. Yeah, hi everyone. That's a great idea to have, that it's trying to pull everything together, because we talk so much about we are a wholeness, or we want wholeness, we seek wholeness, but what does that actually mean? And so that idea with the soul, how it lives, the idea of it and the reality of it, two different things. But this work kind of brings the two together, tries to bring that idea of the soul into the reality and the practicality of the soul. And when you can begin to feel that, because I've been feeling it since I started reading this work, is this a depth to it. There's a deeper inner connection in it. And so I do think that that brings so much of the rest of the life into kind of an alignment, so into a wholeness. So I'm interested to see how that unfolds in the way we talk about it, particularly with the practices with IHOW and the feeling and sensing of it. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Thank you. Me too. Okay. We're good, Patrick. We're good, Lisa. So let me progress then. What I am about to do is I'm going to walk you through an imagery, or you imagining yourself. And you can do this sitting without moving, or if you want to stand up, because it will be easier for you to actually be in the practice in this way, you can do that too. You can do it with eyes closed, in which case you may prefer to do it sitting. Or if you trust your balance standing with eyes closed, that's good too. And what this brief journey is aiming to do, is aiming to let us recognize really the miracle, the profound miracle of being a human with the presence of a soul, with the mindfulness of one of the key messages in chapter 1 talks about the idea that human life is a representation, is an appearance of a universal spirit in a planetary human model, and that the soul is there to help translate, help navigate, help negotiate, help orchestrate the human model in the planetary theater in such a way that the spirit that we each are can at the same time understand and translate that experience. So if you were to first just take couple of deep breaths to relax any tension in the body. And you may actually prefer to do this with also a sweeping, slow move. Just floating with your arms through the space around you, taking a deep breath. Okay, very good. So imagine yourself standing there just at the line of the water, and you're feeling the steadiness of the sand, of the ground under your feet. And that's you experiencing the element of the earth expressed at this beautiful beach through and with the sand. And then you feel the water just reaching your toes, just reaching your toes. Extraordinary sense of the difference, the distinction between the sand. Step back, it's dry. Step forward, you get the feeling of the salty water gently touching your toes and your feet. And all around you, you see the clear air, and you breathe the clear air. And through that air, you get to obviously also see the sunlight that's coming through. Just feel the immense care proffered to life here, that these four elements can coexist. Well, really three elements: the earth, the water, the air, with the element of fire or light not being fully endemic, but being allowed to come through the planetary ecology. And now let yourself get centered in yourself and recognize that the biological, the physical body that you are living in is made out of the substances of the planet. But that inside it, there is an extra something else. Inside it, there is an extra something else. It's the vibrancy of life that you feel, and it's on top of that, the awareness that you are conscious of the environment and conscious of yourself within the environment. That is the extraordinary extra something else that is made possible with the appearance of human life and with the accompaniment of the soul. Just let yourself sense the distinction that this planet, if I can use this word, its divinity is fourfold. It has those four elements. It works through the four seasons. Everything that begins works through a cycle of four. And yet, when you sense into yourself, you have something else. You have an extra something else. Each one of us, we are a five-fold system. If you spread out, you see that you have five extensions to your body: your two legs and your two arms and your head, and you have five fingers and five senses. And most human processes go through a five-fold nature of process. So we are a five-fold being supported in a four-fold planetary ecology, with the soul being the media that facilitates that translation. So let's try and experience it just a little deeper. Okay, so in your imagination, if you were to make few steps forward into the water, gently, no waves, it's completely safe. I can testify for that. And come into the water just to the level of your torso, just below the solar plexus. And you can steady your feet inside the water on the ground, and you're actually now maybe at a height where you can spread your arms and you can actually rest them on the water. So let yourself get the feeling of that. You are supported by the ground, by the soil, by the sand under the water. You are surrounded with water up to your torso or just below the solar plexus. Above you, above the line of water, the air is filled. If your arms are struggling, you can let them rest. There's no need to do muscle testing here. And let yourself feel the miraculous fact, the sacred and miraculous fact that you are a conscious fivefold being supported in a fourfold ecology we call planet Earth. And that the soul capacity and the soul function and the soul job is to help navigate this environment, to enable you to guard your life, to enable you to acquire new learning, and ultimately to support you in discovering and living into your higher purpose. And right there, as you're there, you may choose with your mind to paint that blue of the sky. Let me give you another picture here. Yeah, to paint the blue of the sky. Maybe even this picture will work better. That's where you are when you stepped into the water. So if you can now paint the field around you, in your mind, you can paint the auric space around you with that pale blue of the sky, and you may choose the lower part of your field that's underwater to have that stronger aqua blue painted. Let you just stay with this feeling and imagery for a moment. Okay, very good. So, what does it feel like? What is it you are able to sense? I'm actually intuiting that I'd like to get maybe 3 or 4 voices offering a word or 2 words to your experience before we proceed. What is it you felt when you were sensing into this picture of being a fivefold being supported in this natural ecology? Anybody, please, a word or 2 words or 3 words, just describing a sense. Please, Theodora.
Pulsating with life.
One more time, please.
Pulsating with life.
Pulsating with life. Thank you. Please, Rita.
Balance.
Balance. Thank you. Please, Patrick.
Much greater awareness of my surroundings.
Thank you. Please, Hannah.
A twinkling, stable happiness.
Great, thank you. Okay, so whenever we do those practices, there is no right thing or wrong thing you can feel. It's all part of the experience. It's part of practicing access to our experience, to our somatic experience, to our energetic experience, and part of the search to translate the feeling and the sense into language. Okay, so with that ecology, please let us hold this ecology with us as we unfold now. Let me offer a very brief location why engage with this soul inquiry odyssey, a journey into the soul with a series of inquiries, and why do so now? The briefest answer to the first part of the question is why not? Why not engage with an inquiry into the soul at any time? Because the broader context is the inquiry into the soul is really the search for the deeper mystery of life and of human life specifically. And it is something each and every one of us, we were awakened to that mystery sometime earlier in life or later, and then we've had times that perhaps because of pressures or circumstances we veered away from that sense, and maybe it was more abstract. And then perhaps sometime at a moment of tremendous struggle or pain, or at a point of tremendous happiness or elation, we wondered about the sense of the soul. So, in actuality, we don't need a special excuse or a special reason to inquire into the soul. It's something that would be good to do anytime, in any century, in the past as well. So why nevertheless now there is an importance, an added importance and added significance to this inquiry? And why have we been nudged in the Portals project to embark on this journey we call Portals into the Soul? Well, why we've been nudged into it, we only partly know. The sense of this is we're letting the journey reveal itself to us. One acute awareness is that whenever we look around at our world at the moment, there seems to be a lot of strife, a lot of problem, a lot of... Just anywhere you look, you find crisis. So much that we have learned to call and describe this crisis as a meta-crisis. The term meta-crisis, of course, is a word we use to describe the convergence of some dozen different intractable problems that cannot be easily solved. I'm not going to do the list because there's no need to depress us right now with this list, but you all know what's involved. It's the economic and the social and the environmental and the ecological and the systems of the world. There is a growing sense that so much is coming to an end. Something is coming to an end. The world we have known, the operating system we've known in the late stage of the 20th century, what we have known as the modern world, some aspects of it are crumbling, are getting undone. And with it, we see the great struggle with younger generations and so on and so forth. So the core realization about this is that we cannot actually solve humanity, that is, we, the upper case we, the broader we, humanity cannot solve the problems we have created, to paraphrase on Albert Einstein, with the same tool set, with the same capacities, with the same whatever it was that we brought into the creation of these problems. We cannot imagine that we will be able to solve these problems with the same perspective and with the same sense organs. There is a sense that we need to acquire or reactivate or bring back from dormancy something that has perhaps been latent with humans from the beginning of time, but primarily in recent centuries was put offline, which we are describing here with a sense of the soul in terms of the capacity to integrate the interior orchestra of inner lives alongside with all the profound capabilities we've developed in the modern trace of the scientific inquiry and the technological development and all the technologies that we build. We're not asking to throw these away. We are saying the belief, the fantasy that technology will solve all our problems, which has been very much the paradigm of the last several decades, is reaching now a point of obsolescence, a point of breakdown. We see that technologies we appreciate very much because they allow us all sorts of things, including being here on this shared platform. They also create and exacerbate some of the problems. So we have a working frame that says, what about re-engaging the soul? And we need to discover what that means and how to make that journey. That is a driving impulse and reason to do so. That to help us address, to help us remedy the intractable problems and conflicts and challenges on the world stage, humans all over the planet, and hopefully over time, people in leadership positions as well. We know leadership will always follow what first will be arising from the ground up, where we will see more and more people ready to engage the fullness of what being a human means. So that's my brief answer to why do so now. What is this journey about? What is this soul inquiry odyssey is, and what is it not? Well, again, the brief answer is it is not an academic study that looks to make comparative of all the references, of all the ways the soul was described in all the different teachings in the East and the West. That's one thing we're not going to do. It's an important body of work, but we're not going to actually trace that, because we are trying to come not just with heads and concepts into this, we're trying to approach this in the whole human system. Engage the inner lives, engage the somatic dimension, engage and potentially invite that sense of new sense organs that have been latent or were not given a chance to be brought into the orchestra of living, to engage and bring these online. So that is what this is not going to do. What it is going to be is a journey like we are embarking on today. And the sense in that is that we pride ourselves very much, humans, modern humans, we pride ourselves very much for how we have developed over the last several centuries. To be more precise, the last 4 centuries. Our intellectual capacities, the journey of the primacy of the intellect, beginning to hint itself through the Renaissance, coming online more fully through the Enlightenment, being more unlocked and coming into its fullness through the 18th, 19th century, to the point that you can describe as the Great Untethering. Why the Great Untethering? Because it was through the Industrial Revolution and through the technological wave of the modern world that the intellect developed the capacity, what I describe as above the line, to fly free to wonderful places and unlock fantastic ideas, but also below the line, be divorced, be separated from the actuality of living in a human model. And the risk for any situation like this is that we will become just talking heads, and this is exactly what we are not going to do, as we have already demonstrated a few minutes ago. We want to make sure that we integrate the whole human. So that's the intent, that's the sense of embarking on this journey, engage the whole of the human orchestra, the many inner lives within, and recognize that some of what appears to now be intractable problems, they seem to be unsolvable and intractable because we are looking at them with the faculties, with the perceptions, with the tool sets, with the ways and means that created these problems. And we are proposing that all over the planet there are people seeking now ways to engage through their frameworks and their language and their capacities to bring more of what human life is about online to address personal, local, regional, and even global problems. So let me make a pause here and see if Patrick, Peter, Kyriaki, Lisa, anything from you before I will then lead into one more piece that will then send us into rooms, but anything you want to offer at this point, please, Peter.
Yeah, I'd like to add this idea that when you say, why embark on this journey? Today, my answer for that is because it changes absolutely everything. And in support of that, I would offer 2 things. One is a quote from one of my favorite poets, T.S. Eliot, who wrote the phrase, "The roses had the look of flowers that are looked at." The roses had the look of flowers that are looked at. So there's something about us making a conscious connection with something and that thing responding back to us. And the other side of that comes from quantum physics, where it's known that observed particles behave differently. So this idea of why embark on it, just the fact that we can acknowledge our soul in a deeper way, in a more conscious way, I think triggers our soul's ability to respond back to us in kind and to give us more, because so many things work that way. That exchange changes everything. So yeah, and I love the idea of it. So
thank you, Peter.
I was just going to say probably just about the same thing, Peter. So you said it so beautifully. I would add one word or one thought is the idea of the listening to the nudges. And I think this is what you were speaking of. but to be able to be more conscious that there's something to communicate with that offers companionship and knowledge. How many nudgings do we have that we don't really listen to? We put them on the back burner, and then we say, I thought that, I should have done that, I shouldn't have done that, both ways. So that's what I'm finding in this work, is the listening to those nudges, listening to those thoughts, listening to everything on all different levels, physically, mentally, emotionally.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Please, Patrick.
Yeah, that's amazing, because I was thinking much of the same thing. I wrote down a question: what is the language of the soul? How is the soul talking to us? And so it was very much that of trying to figure out, okay, so we have this like this internal GPS, global positioning system, that's trying to give us directions on where to go. And I was thinking of this yesterday. I was driving a friend's car, and they have much better technology than mine does. And so the GPS system is this amazing graphical multi-screen. Every sort of step I go, every like half mile, it shows me a new position, and I hear this really pleasant voice telling me exactly where I am, and that in 2 blocks you're going to have to turn. And I was just thinking about the soul as sort of this internal GPS that is always trying to help us navigate. And then, so what is the voice of the soul? How would I hear that navigation and nudging of telling me, okay, go this way, go this way, go this way? And it connected to what Aviv was saying earlier about we have these global crises underway, right? And there's something on the website that really caught me too about the soul is a guide through like a planetary obstacle course. So I was thinking of, wow, it's not just physical, there's an emotional obstacle course. Every single day we're faced with this changing environment, and there's a crisis. And I have something built into me that is actually trying to help me kind of navigate what's changing every day. But I need to learn how to listen to it and be aware of it. So I'm just so grateful to have the awareness of a technology like an internal GPS, our soul, that is trying to nudge us and tell us, hey, in a couple of blocks, in a couple of days, you're going to have to take a little turn. And think, oh, okay, thank you very much. I'm now aware.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. Well, so let me build actually on this idea you're offering, Patrick, because where I want us to go next is to build on that awareness that you're offering to how might we be able to access that inquiry? How might we be able to access? What might be the voice? What might be the inner protocol to better attune, to better listen to the soul? So here is a useful polarity to consider. I'm proposing that we think of that as a soul connecting, polarity integration, transcending move. And everything we do in portals, we try to offer a simple map and then release the map for discovery in each of our playgrounds. Because what is living a life? Living a life is being in the experience of practicing and discovering in your playground. So you will discover that what I'm about to bring on screen, you have perhaps considered in other words, in other contexts before, but give yourself a chance to take this scene in a whole new, fresh way, so you can take it into your playground and relax into what it says. So one side of the polarity is thinking without feeling. There's plenty of that all over the place. I'd say most of what is associated with thinking without feeling are abstract or repetitive, or things you remember that you watched on television or saw a movie yesterday, or heard somebody else, or saw something else on social media. There's plenty of that going on, trafficking through your head every day, thinking without feeling. Now, you may have a kind of a nudge of a feeling with it, but it's more or less what was in the stock of that thought, rather than anything that you looked for, which is why I'm describing these very much as recycled thoughts. That's one side of the polarity. The other side of the polarity, you guessed it, is feeling without thinking. What qualifies for feeling without thinking so much? It's because we live in a human body, and there are all sorts of feelings that would arise just because you live in the body. The body can experience hunger, the body can experience cravings, the body can experience that something is out of balance, one aspect or another. The body can experience all sorts of aches and pains, and there are all sorts of feelings that are stimulated and triggered inside the body, and there are those feelings that are stimulated and triggered, well, from the other bodies around you, from the other people around you, and from the environment. And there too, so much of those are general stock recycled feeling. You can be upset, you can be angry, you can be excited, you can experience all sorts of feelings. They just come and go. They don't have any staying power. They were just passing through your systems like clouds flying through the sky. Now, what I am describing to you now in this picture is something that philosophers and practitioners, especially in the East, dedicated a few thousands of years for and built a whole body of practice around, which was brought to the US and to the Western world with the idea of the mindfulness project. So the practice of mindfulness and many Eastern practices, you can go on a 3-day retreat or a 10-day Vipassana retreat or do a 3-month retreat, and you will be invited to the discovery that those thoughts that you thought were you, they're actually not you, and you are time and again learning to separate and differentiate and disassociate with the thought as something that is arising rather than something you identify with. And as it arises, you let it pass through rather than attach yourself to it or even fight with it. Same with feeling. So you'll be practicing that sense of registering and experiencing and going through scanning the entire human system. And where do you experience a sense of pain or a sense of pressure or a sense of dis-ease? And learn to not identify with it, to witness it. And as you witness it, to learn to let it go, relax it, rather than fight it. That has been, in a simple way, a description of the mindfulness project. There's nothing wrong with that. It's wonderful. It provided many people in the West, where we live modern life, that are very fragmented by which we mean you go about your day and you are one person in your job and another person when you're at home and a third person when you're on the phone with a friend, and these fragments get further and further away. And one of the endeavors of mindfulness has been to defragment the fragments, to facilitate those fragments, but through what? Through the creation of the emptying, so to speak, of the mind and the identification with all those things we identify, we hang our sense of self on every day. What I'm about to describe is an alternative path. You'd say, that's a little audacious. Are you trying to say there is another path other than the mindfulness project? I'd say, yes, there is another path that is now becoming even more important. But just before I try to begin to codify it, the reason to offer another path is that with all the benefits of Eastern and mindfulness practices, what they are often bringing you to, with all the various words in Sanskrit or in English that describe that sense of inner luminosity, they offer you access to your inner luminosity through emptiness, through the disassociation with that sense of feelings without thinking, thinking without feelings, all that floats in your process. And we are proposing that there is another way to consider, and that there is a way to dwell with thinking, with feeling. I attempted to give us all just the taste of that when I asked us to imagine that we were right there stepping into the water, spreading our arms in the steady water of the ocean, and to imagine I invited us to imagine the significance that the conscious human life appearing and emerging in a five-fold system supported by a four-fold ecology, that was a thought that if we choose to stay with, could bring to us different kind of feelings. It's a whole other, we use the same word in the dictionary, feeling, but it actually represents something completely different from the experience we associate with a moment of frustration or a moment of drama or a moment of struggle and all those things that are also part of the human experience, nevertheless. And yet I'm proposing there is a whole other kind of feeling that we may begin to unlock. These are feelings that carry potent, intentional thinking. Thinking without feelings is often the not intentional, but the aimless chatter that goes there, and when you say something, mostly you stop a potential of a beginning of a process that could go deeper. Feelings without thinking, again, they would arise in the system because we live in a body, because we live in an environment. If you're in a very hot environment, you will experience heat. If you're in a cold environment, getting closer to the North Pole, you'd say, I'm feeling the stress of cold. These would be feelings induced by the environment. We are proposing that there is a third vector of integration here and transcendence that can bring thinking and feeling into integration. And when we begin to enter that space, we will begin to feel our thoughts. And when you begin to feel your thoughts, you all of a sudden become more caring even to what you think. Because you realize that when you think angry thoughts, when you think cruel thoughts, you feel towards somebody else, you actually feel those inside your own system. So this is a way of not trying to just disassociate from all thoughts and feelings. This is rather an invitation for intentional thoughts and feelings, where when I begin to feel my thoughts, I will naturally feel that I am called to exercise greater care about what thoughts do I give credence to, and what thoughts do I stay with, do I abide with, because they offer me nourishment and they fill me and feed me with something that I want to say yes to, and, oh, by the way, they begin to open different kind of feelings. What kind of feelings? Well, for example, the feeling of reverence. Not a manufactured reverence because somebody said you should feel reverence about something. Not manufactured awe because somebody said this is something you're supposed to feel awe. No, it really is something that you begin to access and you begin to seek entry for, because it is at this point that the soul is able to be part of the communion that you're developing in your own discovery journey. That is part of what we are inviting into in this inquiry odyssey into the soul. A way of thinking with feeling, a way of feeling our thoughts, a way of intentionally seeking and abiding with inquiries where new feelings that we have never felt before can begin to find us. And then when we do so, we can begin to feel that there is actually a third property that begins to join thinking and feeling. It's the capacity to, through thinking and feeling, to discover a creating capacity. I would propose to us that all the great works of arts, all the great works of philosophy, all the great works of ecology design, all the great works of architecture, all the great words of the great works of poetry, in all those spaces, there was somebody who was able to bring an integration of their thinking and feeling to unlock a creative impulse that actually birthed something. And that when they did so, they experienced inside that creative act a communion, a sense of soul communion, inside of which there is an intuition and a guidance and greater intelligence that is brought to life. So I'd invite that we embark on this soul journey with the endeavor to seek that third capacity. We're talking about activating and accessing new sense organs. Perhaps that's a way to begin to enter that space. So with that, I was actually going to bring the question, inquiry, I am proposing that we spend time with in rooms. So I'm going to stay here for 2 minutes to just give you a chance to abide and sense into everything we've been in today so far into, and sense what are the intuitions, what feelings, what inquiries about this journey into the soul are arising with you. And in about 2 minutes, Lisa will drop us into rooms of 4. It's not a test. You don't have to be knowledgeable. You don't have to pass any exam on chapter 1. And it's completely legit to say, you know what? I don't know. I'm just landing here. But this is what I'm feeling. And you may begin that sentence and you don't even know how you'll complete it, but you let yourself listen what you feel. What is it you're feeling inside? And that's part of bringing yourself into the discovery. So, Paul, as we stay here with this slide from Lisa for another minute and a half, is there any musical interlude you want to share with us? So in a moment, Lisa will drop us into the rooms. When we come back from the rooms, we'll have a bit of a harvesting from the rooms, take a bio break, and then begin to explore 3 practices to sense into the 3 jobs of the soul. Thank you, Paul, and Lisa, please.
Yeah, so I put the inquiry in the chat, so you'll have it in the breakout rooms, and we'll send a 2-minute warning, just to say you will have to accept the breakout room, and then you will automatically go. So we'll see you in 18 minutes.
Before we take a bio break, let's do a bit of a harvesting of sense, not a report out of what happened in the room, because that's not the idea, but perhaps we can get to hear from few voices, share a sense, a distillation of what emerged in your discovery. Please, Avshalom.
So it's just an impression of the process so far, including what happened in the rooms. It's very, very strong sense of a new possibility that happened so far because of this quite beautiful and profound introduction. So it already caused many new senses, feelings, perceptions, contemplations, sort of the sense of the soul became nearer by a huge degree in a very short span of time, and it played out itself in the rooms as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Avshalom. Let's hear from Ina, please.
Avshalom mentioned, I feel that for me, it was like for the first time, I hear about the soul from a completely different place, which I never thought about it before. And what very much catching me is to go into the territory of feeling my thought. I have no idea how to do it, or maybe I do it and I don't know that I do it. Those 2 possibilities. So it's very, very, very attractive and new.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Ina. Please, Hannah.
I think it was going in the room already a practical of what happens in the speech before, or where you were talking about Aviv, because by intuition, there was this recognition in the sharing and the acknowledgement that we actually could understand it, but also the importance of making space to value your existence, and by that, to value you have a soul experience. So that's what I want to bring in.
You are introducing in that, Hannah, one of the feelings that will naturally arise when we get drawn closer to communion with the soul, that sense of value.
Yeah.
Again, we live in a modern world where the word value has 3 large connotations. In the business world, they talk about creating value, which they really mean create financial value. That's one way that word has been co-opted in that sense. In the humanistic philosophical context, we talk about values as concepts. But what you are, and there are other ways, I don't want us to get too divergent, but what you are describing is a sense that, oh, can I be in communion with my soul? And is there inside this awareness a new way of experiencing, not as a concept, but experiencing in a throughout, fully embodied way, the value that I have for life, the value that I have for the time in which I'm alive, the value that I have for being given this body, this system, these sense organs, these capacities to fully express life. So wonderful, thank you.
Yeah.
Please, Karen.
Yes, but we started talking about engagement with the soul. And it's just so striking that if in our physical form and our spiritual life, the two are like oil and water, there is no way there would be a communication and a connection without the intermediary. And starting to think about soul in terms of how all the different aspects communicate together, and then broadening it to the integration and the softening of the polarities. And it seemed to open up ideas of different consciousnesses that I hadn't thought about before, to do with, well, human consciousnesses and planetary consciousnesses and spiritual consciousnesses, and how integral the soul is in this communication. And then the whole idea of the cells being informed to allow progression as well. So there's this initial sense of layers upon layers and depths upon depths of something that in my life and experience, when I went through education, there was always a sense that people knew, and I needed to go to places to find out where people knew. And the reality is that they didn't know. And now we're beginning to find out, and it's utterly extraordinary. And so much appreciation for this work going into the world.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. So you offer me you open the door to weave a thread that I didn't get to earlier in answering the question what this is and what this is not, because you actually now named what this is and what this is not, which is the nudge of the work of Portals into the Soul is not to try to present a new teaching dogma about the soul. There is plenty of that in history. The instinct, the intuition of this journey is that there is something unfolding now that requires each and every one of us, if we so choose, to engage with what's occurring with human life on the planet, to bring the more of the fullness of who we latently are, by capacity, by potential. And so the way of it is actually very important. It's not, I'm not presenting myself here as the one voice that will impart the fullness of knowledge about the soul. No, that's not the idea. What the idea is that there is a way in which something about the potential of a soul spiritual life is now ready to come online in a whole new way for people that are seeking and are open for that, not in a way that negates the knowledge of the past, but rather that builds on top of it and is prepared to activate new range of possibility, inside of which what you were just describing, the participative inward, outward discovery of each and every one of us, being a carrier of a soul, being a soul and a spirit, and the importance of the discovery knowledge you can bring into this exploration. So it's a nuanced story we are seeking to tell, because there are certain foundational frames and scaffolds that the journey is going to offer. But they are merely trailheads. The whole point is to invite that we engage with the discovery process. So thank you, Karen. Let's bring Liz, and after that we'll take a bio break. Please, Liz.
Our room really epitomized what you just said. You said the word inward outward, but actually Ursula shared something with us that she's been working with the grandmothers of the indigenous tribes. And she told us a story about her relationship with water. And we all concluded that anything new that we can experience throughout, and nature is always available to us and is a beautiful medium for us to be in the reconnecting. We can see aspects of nature, and it can inform us, and that can bring our soul selves forward. But the water story that Ursula told us, and I'll reframe it or rephrase it because I'm choosing to integrate it and make it alive within me. She said that she became aware that the tap water was potentially carrying toxins. And so she went about trying to find the best way to make the water healthy for her to integrate into her body. And she started using copper. Oh, copper is really good because it'll take the water and it'll change the molecules, and the structure of it will be good for me to bring into my body. And this outside relationship with the copper was what informed her for a period of time. And then, like, one day she woke up and she was like, I have a capacity within myself to greet the water in a loving way, in which, as I bring it into me, I appreciate it. I look at the water and I'm like, wow, you bring me life. You feed me. You nurture me. I am connected with you. And now the reverence that she experiences, taking from the inside, the receptivity to what's been on the outside, it's exactly what you said, Aviv. It's the inside outside relationship with where we have given power to things outside ourselves before. And we're awakening to realize that we have this capacity, and it is within. Structure, form, perception, receptivity can all be changed in an instant, in 2 seconds, by a thought, and taken in throughout to give us this force of energy that's integrative, and, as you said, gives us that communion with the soul, which is so rich, like we can taste it. That's why we're here. I am here for that, and thank you so much for allowing me to feel this so deeply through the thoughts, the feelings of the thoughts. And somebody said they didn't know what it was. I hope this is alive, for us. So thank you. Ooh, I'm very excited.
Thank you, Liz. And again, you're demonstrating the potential of thinking with feeling, and feeling our thoughts, and discovering how sometimes through, as you say, one thought, we can begin to first of all change the water inside our body, because we are also mostly water, right? And the first place where we create sacred water is inside our own body. And how do we make those water sacred? Is by the electrical charge that we dispense from the witnessing consciousness that we give birth to in our experience as being human, and in the way we integrate those thoughts and feelings. So a good thing to send us into a bio break with, to contemplate. So my question is, do you think we can do 7 minutes bio break and come back? And so much more we can want to get to. So let's be here back in 7. Thank you.